Pre-pigmenting is a color technique that you can use if you have really resistant gray hair that's not holding on to color. We're essentially going to create a base for the hair color to grab onto. Think of if you were painting your nails and you pick out a really pretty blue pastel and you paint it on, you can see your nail through it. It needs a base coat, a white, a cream, then you can paint the pastel blue on so you're not seeing your nail through it. That's kind of what we're doing with the hair. We're creating a base, much like you would a filler, for the actual hair color to grab onto. Now normally when you color your hair, you're mixing hair color with the developer. To pre-pigment the hair, you're just mixing hair color with warm water, and it's going to be equal parts. If you're looking for gray coverage, complete gray coverage, it is recommended to use the N series or the double N series. You can use these colors standalone, or you can mix them with another color if you want to add 4NN with a 4R to create a little bit of a red base, which normally I do add some sort of warm tone because these do tend to pull ashy. I'm going to show you them straight out of the tube today. We'll do both colors so you can compare. And it is recommended to do a shade lighter when you're pre-pigmenting. If you want your hair color to be a level 4, you want to grab a level 5. Because we're putting hair color on with water, we're letting it process, then we're mixing up our hair color formula, 4NN, 5N, whatever you're using, with our 20 volume developer, because 20 volume to cover grays, and we're putting it on top of what we just colored. You're compacting hair color, so it tends to look a shade darker. So if you're scared of it being too dark, definitely level up 1. It is equal parts of hair color to equal parts of warm water. This is done on clean, dry hair. And you're taking the hair color water mixture and just applying it on the gray parts. I like to outline it first. The root area tends to be the most resistant, especially on the hairline. And you're just picking out the gray parts. If you have just gray in the front, you're just pre-pigmenting in the areas where your gray is. And this should spread really easily because there's water in it. This one is the darker shade, the 4NN. Again, it's equal parts color to equal parts of hot water, warm water. And same thing, only applying it to the resistant areas or the gray areas, making sure everything's covered. And this is gonna sit on the hair for 15 minutes. And remember, you are not rinsing this out. We're gonna put our color directly on top of this, the color with the developer. This is our base coat, like in our nail polish. This is the white before the blue. And you wanna make sure that you're doing this with warm water and not just on damp hair. It would be a lot easier if you could just shampoo your hair, get out of the shower, and apply the color. But you want that warm water to work with the hair color to open up the cuticle. Also making sure you're staying in a warm room. You can put heat under this, a cap with heat, but just be mindful it is going to liquefy and probably leak out of the cap. While we wait for that to process, we're gonna go ahead and mix up our actual hair color. We have a 5N over here, so I'm gonna take the 5N hair color with 20 volume developer, equal parts. So if you use an ounce of this, an ounce of this, a tablespoon of color, a tablespoon of developer. Doesn't matter what kind of measurement you're using, you don't need a scale, it just needs to be equal. And same thing for the 4NN, it's also going to be mixed up in equal parts with 20 volume developer. After the 15 minutes is up, you can take a towel, kind of blot it to make sure it's not super wet, and you apply your real color. Same method, should be a lot thicker this time. You just want to make sure that the hair is coated. It can be a little tricky because it's already got color on it, so it feels like everything's covered. There's our 5, and this one is our 4 double N. You can take a wide tooth comb and comb through this if you want. You just don't want to mess with gray hair because it will stand out. Silver against a darker hair color, especially if you're going for full coverage. This color will process for 45 minutes, and you can use heat if you want, but just remember, if you're using heat, it needs to be a low setting, not high at all, and that it is going to liquefy a bit and could seep out of the cap onto your clothes, your face. If you're curious how or why this works, if you blow up the hair shaft, pretend this is a tiny piece of hair blown up, magnified. If you put it under a microscope, the hair looks like it has shingles or scales that overlap. And there's 3 main parts to a hair shaft, but the outer layer here, this is the cuticle. It's the protective layer. So think of clear nail polish to cover up the blue nail polish. It's protecting the blue nail polish to make sure it stays on, looks shiny, healthy. Gray hair has a really closed or tight cuticle. So these are overlapped, super tight. It's hard to get anything inside here. Also, damaged hair, hair that's been chemically processed, permed, relaxed, or over-processed has a tighter cuticle, and that's why sometimes products will sit on the outside of your hair. Hair color will literally fly off. Conditioning treatments also just slide off. It's so tight and wound up, it's hard to get these hair color molecules through. So how you open a cuticle is through chemicals and through heat. Warm water will slightly open the cuticle. Not a lot, but just a little bit. When you mix it with the hair color, there's some color molecules that are slowly seeping their way through. They're not doing any chemical changes because they're missing the component. You have to have color plus developer for it to work. What a picture. But it's in a sense slightly prepping the hair, saying, hey, get ready for the chemical changes that are about to happen. So once you do the water step, you wait, then you go over and mix the color with the developer and apply it over this. The hair's already loosened up. It's already had the little pre-gaming to the party. So now the hair color molecules can really go in and make the hair color change. And at the same time, it's softening the hair because gray hair is usually very coarse, very wiry, very resistant. To go back to the first step where you mixed it with water, you don't have to use the same hair color. So if you're using a 5N, you don't have to use a 5N with water. You could use a 5R with water. I think I've touched on this a little bit. I do prefer to use a red in this process, kind of filler like you would when you're going darker blonde to darker hair, just to give it that missing primary, because the N series is really great for gray coverage, but does tend to look a little ashy. Shampoo and condition the color out. This is the 5N side. It's a nice darker color. This is the 4NN, and hopefully you can see this. It has all the gray coverage, but it's casting a little bit of green. There was double in, double neutral. Green will show up when you're missing a primary. Opposite of green on the color wheel is red, so this hair color is missing red, which we knew. So you'll get this very faint green cast. So although the coverage is good, that's not a great color. You can see it better here. If this happens to you, I'm gonna show you how to fix it. Towel dry your hair, so just wet it, and we're going to add the missing primary, the red, with a Dip My Permanent hair color. This is shade ZQ in shade 6R. Mix it in equal parts with a processing solution, and I apologize because I do try to use only products from Sally's for these videos. And we're using a level 6 because when we tone darker hair, we want to use a level or 2 above. This color was a level 4. We're gonna put a level 6. We don't wanna add another level 4 on it and make it look darker. Just apply this as quickly as possible, just like you apply a toner for blondes, but this is for darker hair. It's the same kind of theory. And the processing time is usually 10 to 15 minutes. And I just have to rinse this out. I don't have to shampoo and condition. The Shades of Q or the generic from Sally's, the generic line for Redken Shades of Q, the black and white box, same thing, you just rinse it out. So you can see this side with just a straight in is very neutral. And then when we toned it with the red, it did pull a little bit more red than I would like, but it's definitely better than green. So I know that's a lot of information, but for a quick little recap, you're essentially just putting the color mixed with water. So 1 part color, 1 part warm water, mix that together and applying it to your gray hair. Let it process about 15 minutes. Squeeze it out with a paper towel if there's any excess moisture. Mix up your color formulation. If you're applying color for gray hair, adding in the neutral series, you can use the neutral series by itself, the N series, 5N, 4N, 3N, or the double N for extra gray coverage. But be careful, if you don't mix it with something with warmth or red, you'll get the opposite of red, which is green, which is what we had today. Once your hair color is mixed, you apply it on, let that process. Usually it's about 45 minutes. You have to read whatever hair color you're using and then shampoo and condition it out. If you need to tone it, you're just gonna grab something with red. For the toner, Dip My Permanent hair color, towel dried hair, 15 minutes.